So let's move on. Let's talk about the tools that we use, Jules, because it's one of these things that
Hmm.
we talk about an awful lot on the podcast. We talk about it in the reviews, and sometimes it's just nice to give people a refresher as to what it is that we are using, why we use tools to measure TVs, and so on. Why don't we just get them out of the box and sit there and twiddle the controls until we're happy with the picture? And I guess 90% of people do that. We did an Ipsos poll a number of years ago, probably about 12 years ago now, thinking about it, for Picture Perfect. And that was the one thing that came back. Most people take a TV out of the box and they don't touch it. They put it up in the TV stand and they leave it there. And of course, they're missing out on so much
Hmm.
in terms of the performance and so on. So the AV Forums crowd are not that crowd.
Yep.
But of course, we're reaching out to a lot wider audience than the AV Forums audience. So there are reasons why we measure TVs, there are reasons why we calibrate them, and so on. So in terms of the cost to calibrate a screen, Jules, it's normally quite expensive. I don't know if you want to talk about the actual cost, but it's a few £100.
Yeah. Well, different calibrators charge different amounts, but roughly in the region of £250 to £350.
Yeah,
And that's for the whole. That's basically booking a calibrator for a whole day.
yeah,
And includes the travel time to wherever you might be.
yeah. And I think the thing that people they look at the price and maybe they don't understand what it is that they're paying for, but they are paying for your time, but they're also paying for your experience
Yep.
as a calibrator, and you don't get that overnight. You have to sit
Hmm.
and play around with these things and learn for yourself and gain that experience. And not every display is the same. Each manufacturer has their own way of doing things and so on. So you need to build that knowledge base. So that's what they're paying for. But also the equipment, and this
Yep.
is the bit that most people don't understand is, why the equipment exists and why the equipment is so expensive to buy. Because if it was cheap, I think everybody would go out and buy a meter and try and do it
Hmm.
themselves. And there are routes that people can go down, but still, it's still quite expensive. So let's start at what we use, and I'll let you kick off right now with what it is that you use. And I've just seen one of the questions pop up. Normal person doesn't want to pay anything extra after buying a 2K TV. This is a common question that gets asked. Why does somebody have to pay extra on top of their 2K TV, Jules?
Well, we're not normal people, are we? Yes. We are video files, audio files, and your ordinary person, as you just said in the prologue there, is just going to buy the TV, switch it on, or it's going to put into filmmaker mode, which is very good. And everybody will find their level. But as somebody who's fairly OCD about these things and wants to know I get the very best out of everything I bought, even before I was professional, I was prepared to spend money to get that right, and just have that satisfaction, that I'm getting the best sound, the best video possible out of the equipment that I've invested a lot of money into. So, of course, if you're buying a £500 TV, you're not going to spend 300 quid. £250, £300 getting it calibrated. But the more you spend, the more as a percentage of the purchase price, or the less it is, and the more reasonable it is to get it done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I guess it's like buying a Ferrari.
yeah,
You're going to go and buy a Ferrari. You're then not going to run it on E10 fuel. You're going to, you need to run it on,
yeah,
super unleaded, and it's going to cost you a little bit more to run it on there. You're going to have it serviced every year. You need to have it serviced to keep it running at its optimum. But at the same time, you want to get the best out of the product. So that's one
Perhaps
way.
more pertinent in the car analogies, if you're going to
mm,
buy something like that, you might want to invest in a little bit of time and effort learning how to get the
Yeah.
best out of it.
And
yeah,
it always used to be the case, and I don't know if it is still the case, people when they go and buy a product now, but it was always the case for me anyway, when I was an enthusiast and going out and visiting hi-fi shows and doing research on products that I wanted. I always had 10% in the back of my head for
hmm,
accessories. Whether that was a stand to put speakers on, whether that was a stand for the equipment I was buying, whether that was to pay somebody for their expertise to come and set it up in a particular way. I always had this, always have about 10% of your budget to one side just for anything that you may need to make that purchase work at its very best, let's say.
yeah, absolutely. Not buying expensive equipment and not having that at the back of your mind that you need to set it up correctly. you are shortchanging yourself ultimately. You're not going to get the best audio visual experience out of it.
Yeah, and of course it comes to, and we'll get onto the meters in a minute, but it comes to different things as well. I mean, your room, if you're talking about a display product, the room has a big impact on that. That's something that a calibrator can help with. The whole display chain, people just think it's the TV. Oh, my TV needs calibrated. Well, what are you feeding the TV? Do these devices need to be calibrated? They need to be set up in a certain way. Is the TV switching into the correct mode? When you go to the Blu-ray player, is it bringing up the best possible picture quality? Has that been calibrated? So it's not just about the display, is it?
No, it's not. And obviously there are places now, some retailers offering a pre-calibration service where you can buy a TV and it's been calibrated in the shop. But again, that ignores what you've just said, is that the whole room is part of the video chain, and acoustically as well. I mean, Martin's just been talking about the problems in his room. So you can buy the gear, you can buy really expensive gear, put it in your room, and it's not performing to its maximum capability. So you need somebody to come into your home who's got the experience and the equipment to be able to tweak that for you. And it's not that in terms of video, certainly we are coming in with our opinion. We are a standards-based industry, and everything is empirically verifiable. So when I'm in a grading studio, everything is done exactly the same. And that has to be repeatable in studios across the world, so that the content that we're looking, which is produced across in different studios around the world, like Avatar, and so, it's not a dog's dinner at the end of the day. You're not getting 100 different colors of Avatar. So it's all produced in a very measured and controlled way.
Yeah, measured, controlled, and repeatable, and that's why we use that approach with reviews. Because it gives you the objective data. It tells you exactly how a product's performing. Now, this is where audio and video do go their separate routes. And it's where there are the standards in place that say what red should look like in a Rec 709 color space. What should red look like in a 2020 BT 2020 color space? These coordinates are known. They are in stone. They are written down, and the display must be able to at least get close to being able to display those colors correctly. So when we say, and people are entitled to do what they like with their TVs and displays, at the end of the day, we're not saying you must do this and you must do that. It's entirely up to you. You spend your money, you do you. But if you want to do it right and you want to see it as it was mastered, as the content was created, as it's supposed to look, then there are standards there, and you follow the standards, you will see that content, like Jules says, as it should look. And it was a good example that you used there, Avatar. If you think about how many digital artists have to work on, special effects and so on, creating these images, and they're all using different monitors. They all have to look the same, otherwise you're going to have, 15 different versions of blue. And that's why calibration is important. And another thing, it's a question I keep seeing popping up time and time again on forums or on our YouTube videos and so on, is, well, why do I want all these TVs looking the same? Well, that's the point of calibration. The point of calibration is that you are able to see the content as it's supposed to be seen. And if that means that you have 4 OLED screens sitting next to each other in a shootout and they all look almost identical, that's because they've all been calibrated to a standard. And that shows you how good these displays are at getting very, very, very close to being accurate. And that's what we're talking about being accurate. You read reviews sometimes from people who clearly haven't done any measurements, and they're talking about color accuracy. Well, how do you know that is accurate? The eye is not good when it comes to color and determining different hues and different shades of colors, Joel. And this is why we use expensive equipment.
Absolutely. And ultimately we mustn't forget, it's science driven, but it's for the preservation of art.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it's about. Film is art, and that's what we're trying to preserve and allow everybody to enjoy to its fullest. Yeah.
And again, it's another misconception. People think, well, that only applies to film. Now, that's definitely where this is all stemmed from and has been born from. But games nowadays are...
Absolutely.
These studios now, they understand that things need to look a certain way. There needs to be consistency. across the games. You see feedback from some HDR games looking very odd because the person producing that game hasn't stuck to standards. So again, it's an industry, Jules. I know you've done a few jobs in there as well about calibrating their displays so they are making content that does follow these standards.
Yeah, I work with several games companies, some big games coming out soon, where the games companies have been very concerned that, certainly the art directors in them, very concerned that there's consistency on all of their monitors, that they're working on from the same platform, and we're going to get the benefit as gamers. When you're jet washing something, you want to know that it's
accurate.
It's nice and clean.
You know when it's clean.
Yeah. So let's get on to what we were going to talk about.
Yep.
What's in your toolbox then? I'm paying all this money to hire you to come out,
Yep.
and we now know why we're doing it and the reasons behind it and the science behind it.
Yep.
So what kind of equipment do you use? And obviously this also applies to what I'm doing here when we're reviewing
Absolutely.
it.
But just like show and tell, this, isn't it? So first of all, you need to generate an accurate pattern. So you connect your pattern generator to your display, and obviously the pattern generator is automated. It's connected to your software. So I've got my big beastie here. That's the Meridio 7G, which you might also have.
I see. I thought you were going to get a 6G out, so I was a bit.
I've got 6G as well.
So
I've got 6G as well. There's a little baby 6G, which is much more portable, and then you've got 7G, and it's full of all sorts of patterns. This also includes Dolby Atmos and other sound audio as well. It's got a lot of HDR patterns in there, including video. You can upload your own video to it as well. The important thing is that we're measuring from a reference source.
Yeah.
So if your source isn't correct, then your results are not going to be good. And of course, then we want to measure the output from the display and get that back into the software again. So we then have two different types of meter. The first one here is maybe familiar to many people. It's a Klein K10A, which you might have as well. Yeah. There you go, K10A. This is a colorimeter, tri-stimulus colorimeter. It filters light through red, green, and blue filters. It's very fast. It reads down to black really well, so it's going to read your luminance levels for your gamma, etc. But it even out of the box, they are not as color accurate as one of these, which you also have.
Just trying to get out the case. There you go.
There you go. It's a Jetty 1511. It's about £8,000. One of these little things. Looks like a Nintendo, doesn't it? But that measures light throughout the whole spectrum, not just red, green, and blue. It's very, very color accurate. So ideally, what you want to do if you're calibrating is you want to combine these, because this is very slow and it doesn't read luminance levels near black very well at all. But it's supremely color accurate. And this one's very fast and reads your luminance levels superbly, but it's not so color accurate. So you would use your software to measure the same white, red, green, blue patterns with both, and then your software will compute a correction for this based on that. So whenever you do a calibration, you definitely need a spectro to profile your colorimeter.
Yeah. And profile is very important, especially when we're getting onto displays these days. And this was one of the reasons why I specified a high-res version of the Jetty, again, because the wavelengths of light are changing, laser projectors and so on. We need more accuracy there so we can actually measure the actual wavelength of the light, Jules.
Yeah, we're getting narrower and narrower wavelengths with different display technologies, and for that you need more precise instrumentation. So, a Jetty comes in a basic 4.5 nanometer version, but it goes down to a 2 nanometer version as well. There are other makes of spectra, as a Calif and others. So Colorimetry Research do one as well.
Yeah.
So there are different ones you can go for, but they're doing the same, providing that same function. As we're getting narrow wavelengths, we need higher resolution spectros.
Yeah. And of course, you can also look at the spectrum of light, which is proven to be a popular way of finding out exactly which OLED you have
Yeah.
in your TV. You can tell that just by measuring the spectral output of the
these
light.
ones have got a pretty cool display on them. I don't know whether you can see that. Pretty cool display, and that will show you the spectral distribution of any light source that you are measuring. So it's cool.
If you're also a nit nerd, you can hold that to the screen and it'll tell you exactly how many nits you're getting from that screen as well. It's very, very handy.
That's cool.
Now, these do cost a lot of money to purchase because they are specialist pieces of equipment, and not everybody's going to be able to stretch to these types of meters, Jules. But there are things that general enthusiasts out there who maybe want to try Calman Home for their LG or their Philips or whatever that runs AutoCal. What kind of meters are there for people like that give them some kind of accuracy, if not entirely accurate to what we're using here for?
Yeah. I mean, we started. It started as an amateur with a Spider, which looking back was. I mean, it's still available. You can. I don't know what version we're on to now. Spider 26. It's like the now, the now records, isn't it? But there's there is the main one is the X-Rite i1 i1 display Pro ID3, and the i1 Display Pro is a Spectro version of that, which I think it's a Spectro version. It's about two grand now, I think, $2,000 to $3,000, something like that. Yeah. And then you've got the cheaper colorimeter, which a lot of hobbyists are buying. That's around £200 to £300 from memory. It's exactly like this, and it's a tri-stimulus colorimeter, but it has plastic filters. This one has glass filters, so it has plastic filters. And the thing with plastic filters is that they're less accurate, and also they're likely to degrade over a period of time. So it becomes important then to use a Spectro to correct that.
So hopefully this is starting to get across to people exactly where their money goes when they're hiring a professional, and how intense, how expensive the stuff is to get you started, but also how intense it is for you in terms of getting the knowledge and getting the experience and so on. That again, that's something that they're purchasing. So what connects all of this together is a very clever bit of software, Jules, which has now become the industry standard, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to boot it up and show you, but
it takes forever.
It does. I've got Calman on here. So Calman is a very well-known software package. It's not cheap. Again, it's one of those professional softwares that's going to cost you in the full version, the ultimate version, which a professional would have. Again, that's going to be about $2,500, and then you've got your annual £800 renewal fee as well. So and again, there's another one, is Color Space, which is another one by Light Illusion, and that's again in the couple of grand region, which I've also got. So I've got two of the best on the laptop there for different purposes. There are free versions. There are free softwares out there. You can get HCFR, which I think I started with back in the noughties. So yes, you can do things on a budget, but again, you're going to be a little bit more limited in terms of the accuracy you can achieve because of the gear you're using.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, if it's just for their screen allows them to learn a little bit more about the color science and color fidelity and why things are done a certain way, why the standards exist, and so on. They're not bad, these little meters, and buying a little bit of software. I think it's $200 ish for the AutoCal for a specific display, and then maybe another couple of £100 for a meter. That gets you up and running. And like Joe says, he started that way. I started that way. Yeah. Just with these small meters, and then when you learn more, you get a little bit more experience. You then want to step your game up, and then obviously I moved on to reviewing, so I don't go out and calibrate people's TVs, and so I just don't have the time to do it. But I use all the same gear. It's the same methodology when we come to testing the TVs. It's more about measurement when you're doing reviews. How is the display performing, but then calibrating it as well, and so on. And obviously, what Jules does is he goes out to studios and professional facilities, make sure that all their equipment is calibrated and working properly, and also consumer homes as well. So that's why you need that level of equipment. But don't let those prices put you off if you are interested in it. Definitely pick up a meter. Try and get some software and try it yourself if you're interested in it. It's a big, steep learning curve, but it's well worth it once you get yourself down that road. And it can lead to different things as well. If you're looking for careers or so on, or
I
whatever.
am fascinated by Paul Monger's question, and I think it's one that needs to be asked here and now. Do we have to buy the calibrator lunch? I mean, what is etiquette?
I usually bring my own. Tesco's do a really nice meal deal, don't they?
Well, fine. I mean,
So
that's
there you
all
go.
good.
Tesco meals
But
out.
I'm not averse to somebody providing lunch.